The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Hey Leader Assistants, have you heard the Nova Chief of Staff certification course is about to see a price increase? But don't worry, you can enroll now, lock in the current rate, and start whenever you're ready with lifetime access. Nova's mission is to give you the ultimate student experience. They've packed the course with dozens of templates, self-paced learning, hands-on practice, multiple instructor touchpoints, peer engagement, and even guest-authored assignments. With over 500 students across 22 countries, Nova is the top spot for Chief of Staff learning and development. Don't wait. Enroll today and join the community at leaderassistant.com/Nova. Hey friends, it's episode 300. I can't believe that I'm saying that, but it's true. It's episode 300. You can check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/300. It's been a wild and fun and challenging and inspiring journey, these 300 episodes. And I wanted to take a break from interviews and just really thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. Yeah, just really amazing. I don't know what else to say other than thank you for being here. And just thought I would share a few lessons that I've learned from recording, editing, hosting, and publishing 300 episodes. So 3 quick lessons to share, and I'll just jump right in. But again, leaderassistant.com/300 if you want to check out the show notes. And I'll post kind of a little mini blog on these 3 lessons as well. The first lesson is every assistant has a story worth sharing. I've interviewed assistants to global public companies, world-renowned celebrities, assistants to presidents of the United States, assistants to ultra-high net worth individuals, and I've also interviewed assistants at small nonprofit organizations in rural America that no one's heard of, right? And so every assistant has a story to share. It doesn't matter who you support. It doesn't matter if you're in office, remote, hybrid. It doesn't matter what country you live in, what languages you speak, what level of executive you support. And so I am just really grateful for the opportunity to speak with hundreds of assistants all over the world with different religious views, political stances, different worldviews, different backgrounds, different experience, and different titles. Just lots of differences, but the one thing that is common amongst us all is that we love helping people and we care. We care about our executives reaching their goals. We care about our teams and our companies reaching their goals, and we love being a part of that. So anyway, the first lesson is every assistant has a story worth sharing. And if you'd want to be on the show, let me know. Reach out. I'd love to have you on the show in the future. Lesson number 2 is hosting a podcast is emotionally challenging. I can't tell you the amount of times I've doubted myself over the past 5.5 years. The internal dialogue of never-ending imposter syndrome. You know, the why am I doing this? Is anyone actually listening? If they are listening, is this silly show helpful? Not to mention the negative reviews and the harsh comments, privately or publicly, that have been directed my way regarding the show. But thankfully, overall, your overwhelming support and positive feedback keeps me going and reminds me that if someone doesn't like the show, it's simply not for them. And I know there are hundreds and thousands of you who have enjoyed the show. And in fact, by the time you're listening to this episode 300, I'll be really, really close to 1 million downloads overall over the last 4.5 to 5.5 years of the show. I always try to remind myself, even if I don't get positive feedback, I also try to remind myself that I'm a valuable human being no matter how many negative reviews I get, no matter how many downloads the show gets. At the end of the day, the podcast has zero say on my value as a human being. So good reminder that I try to preach to myself. And then the third lesson from publishing, editing, hosting, recording 300 episodes is that consistency is key. You know, I dove into this crazy world of podcasting with a bit of awareness that staying consistent would be valuable. I mean, in fact, of the millions or so podcasts in the world, only around 10 or 11% of them will ever reach 50 episodes published. And less than 2% will reach 200 episodes published. So I knew that if I stayed consistent over a long period of time, I'd get decent results, right? However, I had no idea how successful the show would be. 5.5 years later, almost 1 million downloads, 300 episodes, and my network has grown exponentially. Not to mention, I've been lucky enough to even make a little bit of money by partnering with great sponsors along the way. So I've put a ton of time and energy into this, and all this to say, no matter what you do, if you can be consistent, the odds of success are in your favor. So there you have it. 3 lessons I've learned from producing 300 episodes. 1, every assistant has a story worth sharing. 2, hosting a podcast is emotionally challenging. And 3, consistency is key. So I don't want to leave you there, though. I know that was just kind of a brief celebratory 3 lessons as we celebrate episode 300. But one thing I'm passionate about is helping assistants embrace AI and realize the power of AI. And there's a tool called Notebook LM, I believe, and it is pretty fascinating. It's through Google, and I'll put a link in the show notes for this episode. But I actually uploaded my little summary blog post that I'll share on the show notes, and also that I essentially repeated to you on this episode. I uploaded the text, the transcript, if you will, into this AI called Notebook LM. It is pretty fascinating. I uploaded it, and within like 2 minutes, I got a file back that was essentially a conversation with 2 people discussing the lessons that I learned post that I just shared with you. So I thought it was really fascinating. It sounds kind of like an NPR podcast. It's actually really well done. And although I am already exposing the secret where it is actually not real humans, it's an AI-generated podcast interview, I still think it's pretty realistic, and I think it's pretty fascinating how realistic it is. There are certain portions of it where you're like, okay, yeah, I can see this is definitely a robot. But then there are other parts you get lost in the conversation, and you're like, oh, these are just some like highly produced podcast hosts. I'm going to leave you with that. Thanks again for listening. Congratulations to making it to 300 episodes. If you've listened to every episode from the beginning, and if you have, send me a note. I would love to hear. That's a pretty long journey that you've been on with me. And yeah, I'll leave you with this AI-generated, NPR-like podcast conversation with a couple of AI voices. So until next time, thanks again for listening, and we'll talk soon.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive where we unearth the hidden gems of insightful content online.
And today, we're tackling the world of podcasting.
Yeah, getting into like all the stuff you don't really think about when you're just listening to your favorites.
Exactly. Like, what does it really take to not just start a podcast, but to keep it going, to actually make it a success?
Right, because everyone has that friend who's like, I'm going to start a podcast. And then like 2 episodes later, poof, gone.
It's way harder than it looks, right?
Totally. So to guide us on this deep dive, we're turning to a blog post that caught our eye. This isn't just some random how-to listicle. This is from someone who's actually living it. They just hit their 300th episode.
Whoa, 300 episodes. That's dedication.
Seriously, the post is called 300 Lessons Learned from Producing 300 Episodes of a Podcast. So you know this is going to be good.
All right, hit us with the wisdom.
Okay, so one quote that really jumped out at me, it said, "Every assistant has a story worth sharing." Now, this blogger, they host a podcast, you guessed it, about assistants.
Assistants. Like personal assistants.
Yeah, like the unsung heroes of productivity.
Interesting. But I'm guessing this idea of everyone having a story, that applies beyond just assistants, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's what's so powerful about this quote. It reminds us that everyone, no matter their job, their background, their experiences, they have something unique to offer.
It's about tapping into that uniqueness, right? And then finding a way to share it.
Exactly. Which actually leads perfectly into the first big takeaway from this blog post: finding your niche. And it makes sense when you think about the sheer number of podcasts out there.
It's overwhelming, honestly. How do you even stand out?
Right. And this blogger, they emphasize that it's not enough to just have a cool idea. You have to be genuinely passionate about your topic, because that passion, that's what's going to shine through. It's going to connect with listeners.
Authenticity. Listeners can spot a fake a mile away, right?
Totally. And when you're forcing it, when you're not truly invested in your topic, it shows. And listeners, they'll pick up on that. But when you're speaking from a place of genuine enthusiasm,
it's magnetic. You can feel it in their voice.
Exactly. And that's what keeps people coming back for more, that genuine connection.
So find your niche, be authentic. Got it. Sounds pretty straightforward so far.
Well, not so fast, because this blogger, they get real about the fact that podcasting isn't always rainbows and sunshine. There's a whole emotional side to it that we don't often talk about.
Oh, I bet. Putting yourself out there week after week, that takes guts.
Absolutely. And this blogger talks about dealing with imposter syndrome, feeling like a fraud even when they'd hit 100 episodes.
Oh, wow. Even at 100.
Yeah. It's that voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, that people are going to find out you're a phony.
I can see how that would be especially tough in podcasting where, like, your voice is literally the thing people are judging.
Right. And then there's the whole thing about negative feedback. This blogger talks about how even one bad review can totally derail your day.
Oh, I feel that. It's like you pour your heart and soul into something, and then some random internet stranger
can just crush you with like a 2-star review. And then there's the big one, download numbers.
The numbers, the bane of every content creator's existence.
Seriously, it's like this constant reminder of how many or how few people are actually listening to you.
I can't even imagine the pressure of staring at those numbers, especially in the beginning.
It's tough no matter how confident you are. So with all of these emotional landmines, how does this blogger stay sane? How do they keep going?
Yeah, what's her secret sauce? Spill the tea.
Well, one thing they emphasize is the importance of focusing on the positive.
Okay, easier said than done when you're staring at a bad review.
Sure, but hear me out. Instead of dwelling on that one negative comment, what if you focused on the 10 positive ones?
Shift your perspective. I like it.
Exactly. Celebrate the wins, no matter how small.
So, like, if you get a nice comment, even if it's from your mom, savor that. Let it fuel you.
Absolutely. And then there's another thing this blogger talks about, which I think is so crucial: building a support system.
Surround yourself with your own personal hype team.
Exactly. Find people who get it, who understand the ups and downs of podcasting, and who can offer encouragement when you need it most. Because let's face it, putting yourself out there creatively, it's vulnerable.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
Having a good support system can make all the difference.
It's like having a cheer squad in your corner, reminding you why you started this crazy journey in the first place. But even with the best support system, there's one thing that this blogger says is absolutely make or break for podcasting success.
Don't keep me in suspense. What is it?
And this is where it gets real. They dropped a statistic that kind of blew my mind. Are you ready for this?
Hit me.
Only 11% of podcasts make it to 50 episodes.
Wait, seriously? 11%. So like almost 9 out of 10 podcasts.
Call it quits before they even hit episode 50. It's wild, right? And it gets even crazier. They included a whole table in the post breaking it down. You want to know how many make it to 100 episodes?
Okay, don't tell me. Let me guess. 5%.
You're close. 5.81% to be exact. It's like, wow. This is a serious commitment, folks.
No wonder this blogger is emphasizing consistency so much. They literally call it the single biggest factor that contributed to their success.
Right. It's not enough to just have a burst of initial enthusiasm and then fizzle out after a few weeks.
Which, let's be honest, is so easy to do when you're not seeing immediate results. Like you put all this work into an episode, you hit publish, and then crickets.
It can be super discouraging, especially in the beginning when you might only have a handful of listeners.
All right, so consistency is key. Got it. But like, why? What difference does it really make?
Well, for starters, building an audience takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to give people a chance to actually find your podcast.
True. It's not like you launch and boom, instant millions of downloads.
Exactly. And then on top of that, algorithms, well, they love consistency.
Algorithms, right. They run everything these days.
They really do. So when you're consistent with your publishing schedule, it signals to those algorithms that you're serious about this whole podcasting thing.
It's like you're proving to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everyone else that you're in it for the long haul. You're reliable.
Exactly. And when those platforms trust you, they're more likely to recommend you to new listeners.
Visibility. Got it.
Right.
Makes sense. But it's still going to be more than just algorithms, right?
It's like you're building that relationship not just with your listeners, but with the platforms themselves. You're showing them that you're a worthwhile investment.
It's like building any kind of relationship, really. Consistency is key.
And it's not just about algorithms either. Think about what consistency does for you as a podcaster.
Oh, for sure. Like you were saying earlier, building any skill takes practice, right?
Exactly. And podcasting is no different. The more consistently you create, the better you become at it.
It's like you're flexing those podcasting muscles episode after episode.
Exactly. You get better at crafting compelling stories, you find your voice, your editing skills improve. It all comes with practice.
So consistency benefits both you and your podcast.
It's a win-win. And speaking of wins, I want to take a moment to talk directly to you, dear listener. You've been so engaged with this deep dive, soaking up all this wisdom about podcasting success.
They're probably taking notes like crazy.
I hope so. But now it's time to turn that inspiration into action. What's one small step you can take today to move closer to your own podcasting goals?
Yeah, what's that one thing you've been putting off? Is it finally hitting record on that first episode?
Maybe it's outlining your next 5 episodes, or even just spending 30 minutes researching that new microphone you've had your eye on.
Don't underestimate the power of small steps.
Seriously, it's all about building momentum bit by bit. Remember that 11% statistic?
Oh, yeah. The one that said only 11% of podcasts make it to 50 episodes.
Exactly. Podcasting is a marathon, not a sprint.
It's about building something sustainable, something meaningful, something that can stand the test of time.
And that takes dedication, but it also takes those consistent, everyday efforts.
And you know what? This blogger, they talk about how all those efforts, they don't just lead to a bigger audience. They can lead to, well, let's be real, some pretty cool opportunities.
Right. Like they actually talk about getting sponsorships, earning an income from their podcast.
It proves that with persistence and, of course, consistency, you can turn your passion project into something truly impactful and maybe even profitable.
It's pretty inspiring, right? But it all starts with that first step. Actually, that brings us to what I think is a really interesting point that this blogger makes. This entire post, it's all about their journey, their experience. But what about yours?
Ooh, good point.
What story, what knowledge, what passion are you sitting on that's just waiting to be shared with the world?
What could your 300th episode celebration blog post look like?
Right. Imagine the impact you could have if you committed to this journey, to consistently showing up and sharing your unique voice. It's really something, right? The ripple effect that sharing your voice can have.
And it all starts with that one decision to hit record and put yourself out there.
This blogger's journey is proof that it's possible. They started with a passion, a microphone, and a message they wanted to share.
300 episodes later, look at them. They've built a community. They're making an impact. They're even earning an income from it.
It's honestly so inspiring. And I hope, dear listeners, that you're feeling that same spark of inspiration right now.
Because everyone has a story to tell.
Yeah.
And podcasting, it gives you that platform to tell it on your terms with a global audience ready to listen.
So what are you waiting for? Don't let those doubts hold you back. Find your niche, embrace your authenticity, be consistent.
And most importantly, have fun with it.
Who knows, maybe one day we'll be diving into your 300th episode blog post.
That would be amazing. Until then, keep those podcasting dreams alive. Keep creating, keep experimenting, keep sharing your voice.
And hey, if you ever want to explore another fascinating topic, you know where to find us. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com